There is a mudflat in northern Germany that swallows a 2-kilometer wall every 12 hours. Researchers from the University of Kiel mapped it in 2023 using magnetometers working directly on the sediment. The tide gives them a window of hours. Then the North Sea comes back and the wall disappears again, the way it has disappeared twice a day for 600 years. Off the coast of Israel, divers work a 9,000-year-old village at Atlit-Yam. At the center sits a ring of 7 standing stones, built around a freshwater well. Skeletons pulled from the site carry tuberculosis. It is among the oldest confirmed cases of the disease anywhere on Earth, thousands of years before cities are supposed to have made epidemic disease possible. In the Bay of Naples, a Roman resort called Baiae sits under 15 meters of water. It did not sink in a single event. The ground beneath it is still rising and falling right now, the same volcanic process that put it underwater in the first place. Archaeologists dive an active hazard to study a dead one. In Jamaica, 33 acres of Port Royal dropped into Kingston Harbor in under 3 minutes on June 7, 1692. A pocket watch recovered from the wreckage stopped at 11:43. 2,000 people died. The ground itself turned to liquid and took the city down whole. This is our countdown of the 10 sunken cities on Earth that even trained divers cannot safely enter. Stay until the end, because number 1 is not a dive site at all. It is a 2-kilometer wall that researchers can only touch for a few hours before the sea takes it back. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from right now. We want to see how many countries this reaches. Number 10. Pavlopetri, Laconia, Greece. A street grid. Underwater, older than the palaces of Crete. Nicholas Fleming found it in 1967, swimming off the island of Elefonisos in Vodka Bay. Beneath him, roughly 9,000 square meters of foundations, courtyards, and roads, sitting at 3 to 4 meters of depth. That's about the footprint of 1.5 football pitches, laid out as a functioning town rather than a scatter of debris. In 2009, John Henderson of the University of Nottingham led a full digital mapping expedition, working with the Hellenic Ministry of Culture and the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. Their team used stereophotography and acoustic positioning to build the first complete plan of the site. The results, published through Nottingham and covered in Internet Archaeology, confirmed something the ruins had already suggested. This was not a scatter of walls. It was a plan. Residential quarters sat apart from religious space. Burial ground sat apart from both. Streets ran between them in straight, deliberate lines, all of it dated to occupation by roughly 1600 BC, with earlier habitation traced back toward 3500 BC. That timeline is the problem. Organized town planning at this level isn't supposed to appear in the Aegean until centuries later, tied to the rise of Minoan palace culture on Crete. Pavlopetri predates the assumption. A street grid, built by people historians didn't think were building street grids yet, sitting underwater shallow enough to snorkel across in an afternoon. Why the town went under is still unresolved. Tsunami activity and gradual coastal subsidence are both candidates. Neither has been confirmed by the sediment record recovered so far, and shallow water brings its own damage. Boat anchors have scraped the foundations for decades. Propeller wash stirs the seabed on calm days. Looters worked the site freely before formal protection began. Every current still runs risk directly across foundations that predate the palaces most textbooks lead with. Number 9. Lake Van, Eastern Anatolia, Turkey. The wall should have dissolved by now. It hasn't. In 2017, diver and photographer Tosin Selin, working with a team from Van Ynsel University, located roughly 1 kilometer of fortification wall at 15 meters depth, built in a style matching known Urartian masonry from the Iron Age kingdom that once ruled this region. 1 kilometer of stone, submerged, running along the floor of Turkey's largest lake. Picture 9 football fields end to end, entirely underwater, most of it still unmapped beyond the initial survey. Lake Van is what geologists call a soda lake. Its water carries a pH high enough to corrode organic material and degrade exposed stone over time. That chemistry should have broken the wall down over centuries of submersion. It hasn't. The masonry is still standing, still fitted, still recognizably built rather than scattered. The likely explanation is that the wall was constructed when the lake sat at a far lower level, long before the basin filled to the caustic chemistry divers work in today. The stone survived the water by predating it. Once the lake rose, it sealed the wall inside conditions that should have been hostile to its own survival. Access stays difficult. Cold water, near zero visibility in places, and an alkaline chemistry that limits how long equipment functions before corrosion sets in. Silen's team has surfaced fragments belonging to a fortress, not the fortress. The settlement the wall was built to protect has never been located. Number 8. Baiae, Bay of Naples, Italy. Roman senators built vacation villas here. The ground took them back slowly, and it is still taking them. Baiae once covered roughly 177 acres of resort architecture private villas. Mosaic floors, a monumental nymphaeum built for the Emperor Claudius now sitting at 5 to 15 meters, inside what's officially the Parco Archeologico Sommerso di Baiae. 177 acres is close to 134 football fields, submerged largely intact, close enough to shore that glass-bottom boats now run tours over the ruins. The mechanism has a name: Bradisism. The volcanic caldera beneath the Campi Flegrei region rises and falls in slow cycles measured in decades, and it dragged the coastline of Baiae downward with it, gradually, over several centuries of Roman and post-Roman history. Italy's INGV, the National Institute for Geophysics and Volcanology, still monitors the same caldera today. It's the identical system responsible for the Pozzuoli uplift crisis of the 1980s, which forced evacuations in a modern town built on the same ground. Here's the turn. Baiae didn't collapse in one catastrophe the way Pompeii did. It sank in slow motion, floor by floor, over generations. That means mosaic pavements and marble fixtures are often still sitting close to where Roman workers originally installed them, 2,000 years ago, largely undisturbed by violent displacement. But the caldera that sank Baiae never stopped moving. It is measurably active right now, tracked by seismic stations across the bay. Divers are working inside a live volcanic system to study the ruins of an earlier phase of that exact system. Nobody studying the site can say with certainty what the ground does next. Number 7. Samabaj, Lake Atlit-Yam, Guatemala, a ceremonial island, drowned mid-use. Not abandoned, not conquered. Diver Roberto Samayoa found the site in 1996, 12 to 20 meters down in the deep volcanic waters of Lake Atlit-Yam. That's a 4 to 6 story drop through cold dark water before a diver even reaches the first structure. Archaeologist Sonia Medrano led the excavation that followed, documenting a Tsutuyul Maya ceremonial center built with altars, stone platforms, and carved stelae, tied by radiocarbon and stylistic dating to activity around 250 CE. Guatemala's Ministry of Culture has since logged the site formally, and Medrano's findings have circulated through regional archaeology journals and conference proceedings across Central America. Here's what makes the drowning strange. Lake Atlit-Yam sits inside a volcanic basin with no natural surface outlet. Something most likely a lava flow or debris dam blocking underground drainage caused the lake's level to rise sharply and never fully recede. The island wasn't lost to war, fire, or slow erosion. It was lost to its own lake, rising around an active ceremonial site while incense was still burning on the altars. In the accounts Medrano's team has reconstructed from the layout of undisturbed offerings, stelae remain uncatalogued at depth today. The technical diving the site requires cold water, altitude, limited bottom time has kept most of it exactly where the rising lake left it. Number 6. Neapolis, Nabil, Tunisia. The smell probably arrived before the wealth did. In 2017, researchers located 20 hectares of a Roman city just offshore from modern Nabil, roughly 28 football fields of streets, workshops, and residential blocks, sitting in shallow, turbid coastal water churned constantly by fishing traffic. Mounir Fontar of Tunisia's National Heritage Institute, working with the University of Sassari in Italy, led the identification and mapping effort. Their findings, covered in the Journal of Roman Archaeology, tied the city's destruction to a single, precisely dated catastrophe: the tsunami of July 21st, 365 C, the same event that devastated Alexandria and the island of Crete on the same morning, recorded independently by the historian Ammianus Marcellinus. Fantar's team also mapped roughly 100 tanks used for producing garum, the fermented fish sauce that was a staple export across the Roman world, shipped in sealed amphorae as far as Britain. Neapolis wasn't primarily a resort town. It was an industrial one, built on a product most modern visitors would find difficult to stand near for long. The full boundary of the city has not been mapped. Modern coastal development and an active fishing harbor sit directly over sections of the site right now. The tsunami that ended Neapolis in a single morning is still being reconstructed. Wreck layer by wreck layer, from debris fields researchers are only beginning to fully survey. The top 6 get stranger from here. A pocket watch stopped at the exact minute a city dropped underwater. A medieval port so lost that divers can only find it by touch. And a city so large that after 25 years of digging, 95% of it still hasn't been excavated. Number 5. Port Royal, Kingston Harbor, Jamaica, June 7, 1692. A city fell into the sea in under 3 minutes. 33 acres of Port Royal, roughly 25 football fields, dropped into Kingston Harbor when the sandy spit beneath it turned semi-liquid during a major earthquake. Roughly 2,000 people died in the collapse and the chaos that followed it. Donnie Hamilton of Texas A&M's Nautical Archaeology program has led decades of excavation here, publishing extensively through the International Journal of Nautical Archaeology, working in partnership with Jamaica's National Heritage Trust. The mechanism responsible is called liquefaction. Solid, waterlogged sand, shaken hard enough by seismic waves, briefly behaves like a liquid. The city didn't crumble the way a building collapses in a fire. It sank whole, floor by floor, largely level, dropping straight down into the harbor rather than toppling sideways. Because the collapse happened so fast, ordinary household objects survived in place exactly as they'd been left. A pocket watch recovered from the ruins had stopped at 11:43 in the morning, the exact minute the ground gave way beneath its owner. The same unstable seabed that swallowed Port Royal in 1692 is still unstable today. The Palisados sandspit continues to shift beneath a working modern harbor, complicating any long-term excavation plan. Most of the site remains unexcavated, not for lack of interest, but because the ground underneath it still hasn't finished settling. Number 4. Dunwich, Suffolk Coast, England. Divers here can't see the city. They can only feel it. Dunwich was once one of England's largest medieval ports, ranked in some surviving tax records among the wealthiest towns in the country, rivaling London in certain years. Centuries of relentless coastal erosion took nearly all of it, house by house, church by church. In 2013, David Sear of the University of Southampton ran a multi-beam sonar survey along the lost coastline and imaged the remains of 4 separate churches, buried under 3 to 10 meters of water. The water carries essentially zero visibility, thick with stirred silt and organic matter that never settles. Sear's project, run through Southampton's Touching the Tide initiative and referenced in coverage tied to the Journal of Archaeological Science, worked almost entirely by sonar because divers on site genuinely cannot see their own hands in front of their masks. A city that once rivaled London in tax revenue is now a village of a few hundred residents. Its former footprint sitting entirely offshore and largely unseen by anyone alive. Divers touching Dunwich's church walls today are mapping buildings they will never actually look at directly. Erosion hasn't stopped. Every winter storm removes material sonar hasn't recorded yet. The original extent of the medieval town has never been fully established, and Sear's team considers the survey ongoing rather than complete. Number 3. Thonis-Heracleion, Aboukir Bay, Egypt. Herodotus wrote about it. For centuries afterward, nobody could find it. In the year 2000, Frank Gaudio and the European Institute for Underwater Archaeology, working with Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities, located a full port city 7 kilometers off the modern coastline. Sitting under roughly 10 meters of water, 7 kilometers is close to a 90-minute walk, straight out from shore, then straight down through murky delta water. The scale of what Gaudio's team has recovered is still being counted 2.5 decades later. 64 separate shipwrecks, roughly 700 anchors, some still lying in the positions their ships were moored when the harbor went under. This was Egypt's primary international gateway before Alexandria was even founded, and its precise location had been unknown long enough that some 19th and 20th century historians suspected it was pure legend, not real geography. 25 years of excavation later, roughly 5% of Thonis-Heracleion has been surveyed in detail. 95% remains buried under Nile Delta silt, unexcavated, largely unmapped beyond preliminary sonar passes. Whether the city sank through gradual land liquefaction, a sudden collapse event, or some combination of both is still actively debated among the researchers studying it. IASM's own published findings, along with coverage in the journal Antiquity, treat the mechanism as an open question rather than a settled one. A city that once supplied an empire is still, in large part, a rumor with coordinates attached. Number 2. Atlit-Yam, Carmel Coast, Israel. They pulled tuberculosis out of a village 9,000 years old. Ehud Galili, working through the University of Haifa and the Israel Antiquities Authority, has spent decades excavating a Neolithic settlement at 8 to 12 meters depth, a drop equivalent to roughly 3 stories of water sitting above the site. At its center sits a circle of 7 standing stones, arranged deliberately around a stone-lined freshwater well, now filled entirely with seawater instead of the spring it was built to protect. Galili's findings, published extensively through the Journal of the Israel Prehistoric Society and multiple international archaeology journals, include human skeletal remains carrying clear evidence of tuberculosis infection, among the earliest confirmed cases of the disease found anywhere on the planet. Epidemic disease is usually blamed on the population density that comes with agriculture in early cities. Atlit-Yam predates both developments by a wide margin, and the disease was already circulating among its residents. Access to the site is now tightly controlled to preserve one of the best documented prehistoric coastal settlements found anywhere in the world. Ongoing coastal erosion keeps exposing new material faster than research teams can properly record it. And why a well-engineered, functioning settlement was abandoned outright, instead of relocated as sea levels rose gradually around it, has never been fully answered. Number 1. Rungholt, North Frisian Wadden Sea, Germany. For 600 years, it was a bedtime story. Then it wasn't. Rungholt was a prosperous trading settlement on Germany's North Sea coast, erased in a single night by a storm called the Grote Mandrenka on January 16, 1362, for centuries afterward. Its existence was treated the way most countries treat a local Atlantis, real to the people who kept telling the story, unconfirmed to almost everyone else. In 2023, Hannah Hadler and Dennis Wilkin, working through combined teams from the University of Kiel and the University of Mainz, used magnetometry to trace a 2-kilometer chain of buried dikes and a church foundation measuring 40 by 15 meters, hidden beneath the tidal mudflats of the Wadden Sea. Their findings, published in the journal Geoarchaeology, gave Rungholt its first hard physical confirmation in roughly 600 years of rumor. 2 kilometers of dike is close to 18 football fields laid end to end, and none of it is visible from the surface at any point during the tidal cycle. This isn't a dive site. Nobody suits up in tanks and descends on Rungholt. The site is a tidal mudflat, exposed only during specific low-tide windows a few times each month, and researchers work directly on the exposed sediment during those narrow hours. The ground is soft enough to trap equipment. The tide returns on a fixed schedule that does not wait for a survey to finish. Each research window lasts a few hours at most. Then several meters of North Sea return, and the site disappears again, the way it has disappeared roughly twice a day since that January night in 1362. Most of Rungholt has still never been surveyed by anyone, in any form. The wall is there, the window is short, the sea comes back on schedule, and nobody studying it gets to argue with that clock. 10 cities. A street grid off Elefonisos older than the palaces that were supposed to have invented the idea. A wall in Lake Van built from stone too caustic a lake should have dissolved it if the water had only arrived sooner. Villas in the Bay of Naples still sinking inside a caldera that never actually stopped moving. An island in Lake Atitlan drowned mid-ceremony by its own rising water. Incense still on the altars. a factory city in Tunisia built on fermented fish sauce, erased in a single dated morning by a tsunami shared with Alexandria and Crete. A pocket watch in Kingston Harbor, stopped forever at 11:43. 4 churches in Suffolk that divers can feel with their hands but will never actually see. A port city off Egypt that once supplied an empire, still 95% buried after 25 years of work. A freshwater well on the Carmel coast, surrounded by standing stones, surrounded by tuberculosis 9,000 years old, and a wall in northern Germany that surfaces for a few hours twice a day, then goes back under the way it has for 6 centuries. Every one of these sites sits behind depth, or turbidity, or an active fault line, or a tide clock that doesn't negotiate with anyone. The researchers working them operate in narrow windows, on borrowed time, often in water they cannot see through. Some of what's down there has been mapped in detail. Most of it hasn't been touched at all. Which of these would be hardest to actually stand inside? Tell us in the comments. If you made it this far, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. The next one goes somewhere even harder to reach.